Hi, welcome back. I'm Dave with Remodel Media. For the last 13 years, I've helped people put together kitchens, baths, outdoor kitchens, and various other home renovation projects. Today, I'd like to talk to you about something that we all use every day, and that is the toilet. I'm going to break down for you the different types of toilets there are, the different design choices, the different types of flushing technology that are used, and how each of those options is going to benefit you. If you like what you see, go ahead and click like and subscribe. I'm going to leave some links in the comments below after, and let's have some fun. So here we have a perfect example of a typical two-piece toilet. Very basic, very simple, very cheap. And there's nothing specifically wrong with a two-piece toilet, but there are some ways to improve the design. For example, right here where the tank meets the bowl, that's your weak spot. That's where leaks develop and that's where cracks can happen. My wife's grandmother had one of these in her home for many years, and it did just fine until one day, she was in her 90s, she wasn't that steady on her feet. She sat back and she cracked the tank. Once we cleaned it up, when we replaced it with a one-piece toilet. That is a toilet that is a tank that is molded into and part of the bowl. So there's no seam, which means no leaks right there, no cracks. It's far sturdier, and it also is a lot easier to keep clean. That's probably the key feature that most people are looking for, is ease of maintenance. The next type of design that you can choose, we've covered two-piece toilets, we've covered one-piece toilets. The next option that you have is a skirted toilet. So when you look at these toilets, some of these you'll notice have a traditional design down beneath where you can see the water trapway. A skirted toilet is concealed. You can't see it. Now, this does two things. This provides a cleaner design element, but it's also easier to keep clean, easier to clean around than something with all those curves. The next category of toilet you have is a wall-mounted toilet. Now, this wall-mounted toilet is mounted to a carrier that has a tank on it inside the wall. So you're cutting off this much of the toilet and pushing it into the wall, which gives you a lot more room in the bathroom. So for bathrooms with a tight space where you're going through a renovation, a little bit of planning, and you can put one of these in. It's not the easiest thing to retrofit, but if you're at the beginning stages of your project, now's the time to plan for it. If you can imagine, this will be your wall, and you'll have a couple of buttons for big flush and little flush, for big jobs and little jobs. Like this right here. You have the little button for small flushes, big button for big flushes. Or if you really wanted to get crazy, you can hit them both. One type of toilet I'd like to talk to you about is a bidet combination toilet. What I mean by a bidet combination toilet is each of these toilets works as just a functioning toilet as well. However, it does have a remote control where you can have front and rear wash, you can adjust pressure and position, even have some user presets on them. There's even some of these that you can stream audio, you can tune in the local radio stations while you do your business. So probably the most popular by far is going to be the Toto Neorest, although they do also have a washlet series. And there are other brands out there that are coming out with their own versions of it as well. I believe Kohler has some, as well as a brand called Accent. So you're starting to see a lot more variety in that marketplace. So one of the reasons a bidet is such a great option is not just for cleanliness, not just for personal hygiene, but also for ease of use. So for example, I have an elderly family member that was able to remain in his home longer. He lost his legs to diabetes, and he was able to stay in his home for a longer period of time before going into a facility because he was able to take care of himself by using a bidet. Now, what we did in that situation is we purchased a bidet seat that was able to retrofit to his existing toilet. There are a number of companies out there that make them. Most of them require power, so make sure you have a power outlet somewhere near the toilet. If you're going to get one that does not require power, remember that means it also does not have a water heater in it, and so you will be squirting yourself with cold water. Now I want to talk to you about the different types of flushing technology there are. So if you go back to the 1980s, I can still remember as a kid my mom going down to the local hardware store and picking up her free toilet from the water department when we were going from a 3.5 gallon flush down to a 1.6. So we ended up going down to this 1.6 gallon flush toilet, but it was a toilet where all they did was lower the water level. They didn't do anything else mechanically. So we ended up with a toilet that was designed to work on 3.5 gallons per flush, but it was actually trying to work on 1.6 gallons, meaning it was a toilet we had to flush 3 times to make it work. So the way a toilet works is, so this is your typical toilet right here. You have a few basic components. You have your fill valve, you have your flush valve, and you have your flapper. Now you pull the lever, the chain pulls the flapper up, the water pushes the waste down the drain through the flush valve. Now this is a small little 2-inch flush valve, not very large. You can tell just by looking at this toilet, it's not going to be a very powerful flush. So what a lot of companies, Toto and some others, what they did was they took that design and they tweaked it just slightly. So when you look at this, that flush valve is noticeably larger. It's about a 3-inch flush valve. And they also added a couple of interesting features. They added a rim jet system and a siphon jet system. The rim jet system creates a push. The siphon jet system, the hole at the bottom of the toilet here, creates a pull. So you have force coming from 2 different directions now. All of these features add up to a more powerful flush and a cleaner flush, and where everything gets taken away. The other type of flush that you have out there is a push button or even a dual flush. Now, a push button works by, there's a button on the tank that pushes a plunger, and this plunger lifts up and down. It lasts a lot longer than a flapper, but when it does have to be replaced, it is a little bit more of an effort to repair, and you have to wait a little longer for parts. So there is a trade-off there. The dual flush works in a similar way, except these are usually 1.6 gallon, not 1.28 or less. And again, it works similar to those wall-mounted toilets where you have a big button for big jobs and a little button for little jobs. One of the other features that you should pay attention to is in the spec sheet of the toilet you pick. Hopefully they specify that there is a fully glazed trap all the way through. That means the drain line down here on the inside is polished and smooth. That means less buildup, less clogs, and again, more efficient flushing. One of the features that you'll find advertised, especially lately, is a feature, well, it goes by different names. Toto calls it Cephion Tech. I believe Icera and St. Thomas call it a non-staining antimicrobial porcelain glaze. So what this is a non-staining antimicrobial porcelain glaze. What that means is you're going to have less buildup in those toilets that have that feature. I actually tried this out in my own home. I purchased a Toto Drake II. And I put this toilet in my downstairs bathroom, the one that gets all the use. And I told everybody, don't wash it. I want to see how long this thing takes to get dirty, because I'd had salespeople telling me for years that this Toto glaze was just totally awesome. So it took about 6 months for this glaze to actually have any noticeable staining whatsoever. So, and that is of continuous use. My kids, their friends, house guests, everything. So it is a feature that is really awesome. And if you don't want to be constantly scrubbing your toilet, it's a good thing to look for. There are 2 key pieces of information that you as a homeowner need to be aware when selecting a new toilet. The first is called the rough-in measurement. Now, the rough-in measurement, quite simply, is the measurement from the edge of your wall to the center of your drain hole. Now, nobody's going to expect you to remove your toilet and measure that. But what you can do is measure from the wall to these bolts that hold that toilet down, because these bolts happen to line up with the center of your drain hole. So if you measure from that wall to those bolts and you determine that it is a 12-inch measurement, you are within the realm of what we would consider standard. You may see some variation up to about ½ an inch either way. That's perfectly normal, especially with things like crown molding and stuff like that that tend to bump the wall measurement out a little bit. That's okay. If you're 11 inches or under, you're going to want to look for a toilet that is a 10-inch rough, meaning that toilet is meant to fit on a drain that is about 10 inches from the wall. If you determine that it is a 14-inch rough, it's not very common. You could put a 12-inch rough-in toilet in a 14-inch rough-in space. Just understand you're going to have about a 2-inch gap at the back of that toilet, so between the wall and the tank. So the rough-in measurement is the first measurement you want to get. The second measurement that you as a homeowner need to be aware is how far this toilet is, your current toilet is protruding from the wall to the nose. And the reason this is important, in many bathrooms, you have a door. And depending on where that toilet is, it may just barely be clearing the door, or you may have lots of space. But it's an important measurement to consider when you're going out shopping for a new toilet. Along those notes, you also will encounter terms like elongated and round front. Elongated quite simply means that it doesn't necessarily mean that the toilet is long. It just means that the toilet is an oval-shaped bowl, as opposed to a round, which is a round-shaped bowl, such as this one right here. It doesn't necessarily stick out that much further, but it is important to take these things into consideration. One of the cool features to think about also is many toilets now are shipping standard with a slow close seat. Now this slow close seat, it's not a mystery. All it is a little packet of oil or fluid in the hinge that makes it so the lid closes very slowly. Now, that's as opposed to a typical toilet seat, something like this, which I go over to my in-laws' house and they don't have this on their toilet. So what happens is I get up from the toilet and I go like this, and it makes a big noise. And I come out and my father-in-law says, "What, are you mad at the toilet?" "No, sorry." That's all we have for you today. Thanks for hanging out with us. Again, my name is Dave with Remodel Media. Please remember to hit the like and subscribe and share it with all your friends who need some potty training.